You know, we often think about the limits of human endurance, but what if I told you there are creatures out there that make our best efforts look like a warm-up? We're talking about biological machines that just seem to defy physics. And today, we're digging into one of nature's greatest endurance puzzles. So here it is, the big question. How can a bird fly for 200 days without ever landing? I mean, seriously. For decades, this question just stumped biologists. We know every brain needs sleep to survive. So are these birds just ignoring a fundamental rule of life? Or have they found some kind of incredible biological hack? I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. 200 days. That's more than 6 months in the air without touching the ground once. The Alpine Swift holds that record, but believe me, it's not alone. You've got the Great Frigatebird, which can fly nonstop over the ocean for 2 whole months. And for them, landing on water, that's just not an option. Their feathers would get soaked and they'd literally drown, so they just have to keep flying. Okay, to really get a grip on how insane this is, let's look at us. For a human, going just 48 hours without sleep, you're talking hallucinations, collapse, the works. But these birds, they're performing at an elite athletic level for months on what looks like zero rest. The gap between us and them, it's almost hard to wrap your head around. So how on earth do they pull it off? Well, the answer is one of the most elegant, most brilliant solutions in all of nature. Scientists have a name for it, the split brain solution. And trust me, it completely rewrites the rulebook on sleep. Okay, so you and I, when we sleep, our brains are basically all or nothing. We're either awake or we're asleep. But some animals have evolved this incredible workaround. It's called Uni-hemispheric slow wave sleep, or USSW for short. And yeah, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. One half of the brain can go into a deep sleep, while the other half stays completely awake and alert. So how does this work in practice? It's just fascinating. Think of the bird as a tiny airplane. It can put its left brain to sleep, right? When it does that, its right eye closes. But the right side of the brain, it's still at the controls, keeping the left eye wide open, scanning the horizon, navigating, basically flying the plane. And then, after a while, they just switch. The right brain gets a break, and the left brain takes over. They are, quite literally, sleeping with one eye open. Now, for a really long time, this was just a fantastic theory. It made sense, but hey, science needs proof, right? And that proof finally arrived in 2016, thanks to a truly groundbreaking experiment on great frigatebirds, way out in the Galapagos. So what these researchers did was pretty incredible. They managed to fit these frigatebirds with these tiny, super lightweight EEG sensors, little brainwave monitors that could track their brain activity in real time while they were soaring for weeks over the open ocean. This gave them a look inside the mind of a bird in nonstop flight that nobody had ever seen before. And the data that came back? Wow, it was mind-blowing. First off, it confirmed it. Birds do enter deep sleep while flying. And yep, they use that one-sided split brain sleep we were talking about. But here's where it got crazy. Sometimes they'd put both halves of their brain to sleep at the same time. And get this, they even had these super short, seconds-long bursts of REM sleep, dream sleep. For that tiny moment, their head would droop as their muscles relaxed, but they wouldn't fall out of the sky because they were cleverly gliding on thermal updrafts. Just incredible. But as amazing as all that was, it wasn't the biggest bombshell from the study. Not even close. The most shocking discovery wasn't how they managed to sleep in the air. It was how incredibly little sleep they were actually getting. All right, just look at this chart. On land, a frigatebird will happily sleep for a solid 12 hours a day. Pretty standard. But in the air, while flying for weeks straight, they get by on an average of just 42 minutes a day. I'm going to say that again, 12 hours versus 42 minutes. That's a sleep reduction of over 90%. Think about that. This one finding just completely shattered everything we thought we knew about sleep debt. It showed us that these birds can operate at peak physical condition on just a tiny, tiny fraction of the rest they'd normally get. It suggests that the whole need for sleep is way more flexible than we ever imagined. So, naturally, this leads to the big question, right? If these birds can do this, why can't we? Why didn't evolution give us this incredible superpower to function on just a few minutes of sleep? Well, it all comes down to a classic evolutionary trade-off. See, for a bird flying over the ocean, survival depends on being constantly vigilant. You've got to watch for predators, navigate the wind currents. So their evolution traded deep restorative sleep for the ability to stay constantly aware. We humans, we took the exact opposite path. Our ancestors evolved to sleep in relatively safe groups, which allowed our brains the luxury of completely shutting down. We traded that constant awareness for a super efficient, deep sleep that's absolutely crucial for things like brain repair and locking in memories. So what this all really tells us is that sleep isn't some rigid, unchangeable rule of biology. It's more like a sliding scale, an incredibly adaptable tool that's been shaped for survival. For these amazing flying birds, it's something they can just sip in tiny little doses, just enough to keep the engine running until they can finally come in for a safe landing. There's a quote from the original research that just sums it all up perfectly. Nature doesn't let something as trivial as unconsciousness get in the way of survival. It's such a powerful reminder that when it comes to life, the rules are often more like suggestions. And it really makes you wonder, what other biological limits that we take for granted are just out there, waiting to be completely shattered?